Have you ever had one of those, I can't believe I just did that moments? I want to tell you a quick story that it's crazy, and it's about how my podcast started and how I got one of my biggest guests and one of my favorite people. So it was 2018, May of 2018, and I went to this conference in New York City. It's called VoiceCon, and it was about the power of digital voice and how podcast and AI was going to take over the world. And it was put on by Gary Vee Almost. And it was a small conference. It was probably 100 people max in this small little office building. And he had some powerful speakers. Jay Shetty was there. Just amazing content for the day. And I'm a big Gary Vee fan. I've read his books and I follow him and I love his energy. And I'm like, this guy would be the perfect podcast guest. And I hadn't started my podcast, or I had just started. I think maybe I was 1 episode in, 2 episodes in. And I was going to the conference to figure out how to leverage what I learned on my podcast, how to make my podcast better, how to have more of an impact. And this guy has obviously a huge social impact. So I listened to him speak, and they take a break. And I'm standing towards the back of the room with a buddy of mine, and Gary Vee walks up. I'm standing at a high cocktail table, and Gary Vee walks up, and we start having a conversation with him. And we talk for about 5 minutes, and then he leaves, and I'm like, man, I can't believe I didn't ask him to be a guest on my podcast. I missed my shot. And for the rest of the morning, I'm like, I can't believe it. I'm kicking myself in the butt. I'm like, I can't believe I'm talking to my buddy. I can't believe I can't believe that. So it goes on, and I'm at the rest of the conference, the rest of the morning and the afternoon. I'm listening to the conference. Jay Shetty comes up and he gives a great talk. I get to go talk to Jay Shetty one-on-one. Got to have a 5-10 minute conversation with him. Again, didn't ask him if he would be on my podcast. I don't know why. I don't know if I was more enamored that I'm talking to 2 guys that I really enjoy their content, or maybe I had like stage fright. But I now this is the second person I completely blanked on. And I'm like, and I said to my buddy, if I ever get that shot again, I'm never going to make that mistake again. So then they have like 2 more speakers left. They take a 15-minute break. I go to the back of the room, stand in the back of the room again. Gary Vee had already left. We had seen him leave for the day. And I'm standing at the back of the room. There's only 1 or 2 speakers left. Gary and Jay Shetty had already spoke. And so at this point, most people had left. And all of a sudden, Gary walks in the back door, kind of like right where I'm standing. And he's standing 2 feet from me. And I'm like, that's it. Here I go. I'm going to ask this guy today, right now, to be on my podcast. So I walk over and I'm like, hey, Gary. And he's like, hey, how's it going? And I was like, good. And he said, and I said, hey, let me ask you a question. How does a new podcast host, somebody has a brand new podcast, how do they get somebody to say yes to be on the podcast? Somebody of your stature, of your quality, of your fan base. Like, how does somebody leverage that and get? And he's like, you got to provide a great value, and you have to ask. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, you got to provide great value. What does that mean? He's like, well, the podcast has to be valuable to both. It has to be a mutually beneficial relationship where you're going to get something out of the podcast, and the guest is going to. And I said, all right, great. He said, you got to, but the number one key is you got to ask. And I said, all right, value, and you got to ask. He goes, and if you do that, you're still going to get told no, but most people are going to say yes because most people are afraid to ask. And I said, all right, ask, provide value. And I said, I'll tell you what, Gary, I'm going to go create a really awesome podcast that's going to create a ton of value, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask you to be on my podcast. And he's like, great, I look forward to it. And I walk away and I tell my buddy, I was like, oh yeah, he said, once I create value, he's going to be on my podcast. I'm all excited. I'm jazzed up. I get on the train. I'm going back home to Baltimore, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, wait a second. Did I just miss my shot again? Like, he must have said 3 times, you just have to ask. Did I actually ask? Did I ask Gary Vaynerchuk to be a guest on? And I never actually did. I said I'm going to. I procrastinated the ability to ask him. He's standing right there, but I never actually asked him. So I'm like now hitting myself in the face. I'm like, I can't believe it. Now I missed my shot a second time in less than like 4 or 5 hours. I'm like literally beating myself. And I listen, I'm a sales guy. It was a horrible sales moment. And so I go back and I'm just like, I can't believe I just did that. And for the next couple of weeks, I'm kind of like kicking myself. Like I got pictures with them, I talked to them, I got a book from them, I did this, but I missed my shot. Well, the universe always conspires to give you what you need. And about a week later, I get this advertisement that he's going to be speaking in DC with Tony Robb and some other people. And so I buy tickets to go see Tony. I'm like, if I get the chance, I'm going to ask him. I'm not missing the shot. So I buy tickets, and then the day before, they're like, hey, have a private 90-minute session with Gary Vee if you want. Like you have to buy some extra tickets. So I buy the extra tickets, and I get there during the show, and it's me and a client of mine and a couple of guys, and there's like 6 of us in the room. We have them for 90 minutes, 2 hours, something like that. And I said, Gary, I don't know if you remember me from VoiceCon. He goes, yep, I absolutely remember you. We had a conversation in the back. I said, do you remember, you said, just ask. Did I walk away and did you say, what a jackass? Like, why, like, what an idiot. Like, why didn't you ask? And he said, I vaguely remember thinking to myself, I kept telling you to ask me and you never actually asked me. And so I said to him, all right, well, I'm not missing my shot a third time. Will you be a guest on my podcast? And he said, absolutely. So
this is the best podcast of all time, by the way.
Lo and behold, 45 days later, I'm in New York. I'm interviewing Gary Vee for the podcast, and the relationship between us was sealed at that point. I think the message of that story, or what I got from that, was 1, stay persistent, right? 2, don't beat up on yourself too bad if you miss your shot. But 3, have the courage to just ask. Ask for what you want. You'll always get rejected. There'll always be times of rejection. But if you just have the courage to step outside, in the great movie, We Bought a Zoo, I just need 20 seconds of insane courage just to ask the question.
You know, sometimes all you need is 20 seconds of insane courage. Just literally 20 seconds of just embarrassing bravery. And I promise you, something great will come of it.